So my day job is serving as director of the Seminary project at Princeton Seminary. And so the farm in its own way, it could be seen as a project that lies at the intersection of faith and science. That's not how we talk about it, that's not its intent, but we do by nature intersect with faith and science as we're exploring, like, how do we relate to this farm in such a way that yields life, and science is helpful for this. But the story that came to mind thinking about faith-science ministry regards a young adult who is a member of the church, Mennonite church, where I'm a member, and a smart, capable, thoughtful young guy who finished his undergrad a couple years ago and then ended up in a master's in ecological science program, and through all of this just had tremendous vocational angst, like, what do I do with my life? And really drawn to ecology, sort of fascinated by the science, but this sense that, like, science wasn't able to answer the questions that he had, even though he found it really interesting. And so I invited him to come to the Seminary one day. We grabbed coffee and tour the farm and all these things. And so we started off in town having coffee, and he's telling me his story, and I'm asking him about life and whatnot. And you know, in the midst of this, he is compelled to tell me, look, I am not supposed to be a pastor. Like, that is just, and I'm like, fine, whatever, you know, that's cool. So we, you know, but he shares about his journey, his love for the outdoors, his love for ecology, and yet this abiding sense that there are still these questions that science can't answer. And so we have a nice conversation, and then we eventually go out to the farm. And so the farm is this 21-acre space where we are developing curriculum for theological students that gets students' hands in the soil, and we're trying to bring the theological curriculum to life in that space in a new way. And so I give him the tour. We go to the gardens, we go to the barns, we're walking around sort of through the trees, and as we're going, at one point he just stops, and he kind of grabs my arm and he stops me, and he says, I know I said, like, I could never be a pastor, but if pastoring looked like this, I could do that. And so it was just this interesting moment of, like, if I reflect that into or back onto the sort of faith and science conversation about how our young people have these caricaturizations of faith and science and ministry, and most of them are reductions of what they actually are, and just the need for in all of those realms for imaginations to be expanded. And so to think about ministry on a farm, or to think about, you know, science in a congregation, right? Like, these have the potential, at least, to be imagination expanding practices. And I think we're seeing that in a small way at the farm. And I think Patrick, this kid, had an experience like that of, in that context, faith looked a little different, ministry looked a little different, and I suspect his sort of experience of ecological science also, there was new light there as well. So that's, it was a nice moment.